Spread the word of Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Most Merciful, all praise is due to Allah. And may His peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace, the blessings and the mercy of Allah be upon all of you. And welcome back again to this beautiful journey that we are taking with our beloved teacher here, Dr. Jaafar Idris. Dr. Jaafar, it's always good to see you. And thank you for being here with us again. And this is where we are learning from the wisdom of our elders. Sheikh, I am eager to know about a Muslim student studying philosophy in England. What were some of the challenges that you went through as you were doing your studies there?
Of course, I went to England for postgraduate study. I studied philosophy in the Sudan. And I was taught by Westerners, but I studied philosophy. When I went to England, I went for postgraduate. And I started with a philosopher who was perhaps one of the greatest living philosophers at that time. It's called Karl Popper. And I chose him because I read one of his books when I was in the Sudan. I liked it and said I want to go. But I didn't actually study with him because when I went there, he was on sabbatical or something. He left for a whole year. When he came back, I used to attend his seminars. But then, as I said in the previous episode, that I had to interrupt my studies and go back to the Sudan. There is a lot of challenge in philosophy because I always tell the students that these philosophers are great minds. They are not just ordinary people. So when you come to study them, you should come equipped. And I benefited very much from my reading of Ibn Taymiyyah, because Western philosophy is a continuation of Greek philosophy that based on. And he studied Greek philosophy, and he studied the writings of Muslims who were influenced by Greek philosophy. So I benefited from him in looking at philosophy from a critical point of view, and not just as some people do. They teach you philosophy, some part of the Arab world. I don't know about other part, but they teach philosophy as if they are teaching you the Quran or the Sunnah. Descartes said so and so. Hume said so and so. And if you criticize, it is as if you said something against a hadith of the Prophet or something. And I was fortunate that my teachers were not like this. In fact, they used to encourage criticism. This is something that I am grateful for my Western teachers for. They used to encourage us to criticize. And I remember that the first short essay that I wrote, very short, was on something that Socrates said, and they find puzzling. He says, virtue is knowledge. Virtue is knowledge. And they say, what is the relationship between virtue and knowledge? This is something. And I said, for us Muslims, this is something not puzzling at all. And I quoted the verse, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. So there is khashya and there is ilm, and so on. And he liked that very much, and gave me distinction for this.
With that.
Now, and I am sure if I said this to someone in the Arab world at that time, he would say, what has the Quran to do with philosophy? Why are you quoting the Quran? But as I said, I was fortunate to study under people who were critical of their own philosophy. You know.
Sheikh, you said something about a person being equipped as they're studying philosophy. And if I, not to represent the teachers that you said would have not made the best of philosophy teachers, but I think that there is an impression out there that says that somehow Muslims are not necessarily intellectually equipped to make these types of challenges in philosophy or to philosophers.
Why? From my own experience, even as a student, I made some challenges, and I remember one of them. Well, I was living in a hostel with an American, a white American, who was also postgraduate student. And I argued with him about something, and he told me, and many Americans are very innocent people. He said, I never thought that someone like you would be able to say something like this. Because many these Americans, they think that a black person cannot be intellectual, or that someone also told me that he used to think that there are only two religions in the world, Christianity and Judaism, and so on. So I don't think that there is a problem. But I should also say that many of the people who studied philosophy in the Arab world, I say many, not all, made themselves just like students of Western philosophers. They keep translating, explaining, and so on. They don't challenge. They don't produce their own philosophy. And that is why many of the philosophers in the West, the real challenge comes for them from earlier scholars like Al-Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah, and so on. This philosopher under whom I studied was very fond of an idea which he thought was his. And after one seminar, I couldn't tell him in front of everyone. I told him that there was a Muslim theologian who said the same thing that you are saying now. And he said, I told him about Ibn Taymiyyah. He told me that he knew nothing about Ibn Taymiyyah. And he told me, and he embarrassed me, in fact. He said, you don't write about your people. That's why we don't know them. No.
So, Sheikh, going back to the idea of being equipped, what were you referring to as people who are studying Western philosophy? What do they need to be equipped?
If you are a Muslim, you have to be equipped first with, you must have good knowledge of your deen. Otherwise, these people, as I said, that they are great minds, they will influence you. So you must have good knowledge of the Quran. You must read what earlier Muslim philosophers or theologians said on these different topics, because we know now that many of the ideas of the Western philosophers were taken from Muslims. I have no historical proof. But when I put some of what Al-Ghazali said with and compared it with what Hume, a very famous British philosopher, said. The supervisor said, Hume must have snatched this from Al-Ghazali. And the same they say about something that Descartes says, which is very similar to what Al-Ghazali said in his famous book, Al-Munqiz min al-Dalal. Something that, is said also about Kant and his what he said about intention, because there isn't much in Western philosophy or Western thought about intention, and they say that he must have gotten this from Muslim. So if you read what earlier Muslims said, and whether they are philosophers or theologians, because there isn't very big difference between the two. For example, we have great minds. A man like Razi was a great mind. Even
Sheikh, I'm sorry, we have to hold on our thoughts regarding Razi and other great Muslim minds. We will take a short break and we will be back, so please stay tuned.
Spread the word of Islam.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and the blessings and the mercy of Allah be upon all of you, and welcome back to this beautiful journey where we have as our guest our beloved teacher, Dr. Jaafar Idris. Dr. Jaafar, welcome back. And Sheikh, before we took the break, you were telling us about great Muslim mind, and you mentioned people like Al-Ghazali and how some Western philosophers believe that their thoughts are an extension of these Muslim philosophers.
I was saying that great minds like Razi, Ibn Rushd, who even Al-Ash'ari, and so on. These are theologians or philosophers. But also we have people who were the real leaders of thought in the Muslim world. Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. They were great intellectuals. Many people think that they used just to learn the Quran by heart or the Hadith. No, they were not. They were real intellectuals, but in their own fields. You can say the field of law, the field of morality and ethics, and so on. And now we can benefit from all these intellectuals, because now there is no real sharp distinction between philosophy and other
discipline on its own in the Islamic studies. During the month of Ramadan, I met a pastor they came to our masjid, and he was telling us that they have a program nowadays in introducing Christian theology to their congregation. And they brought a famous PhD holder in Christian theology to come and teach the Christian congregants about Christian theology. But the book that he was using was the writings of Imam Ghazali.
Subhanallah.
No.
Why?
Inside the church, they felt that the man was an intellectual wealth, and they felt that the best representation of theology was the writings of Imam al-Ghazali. And this is what they were teaching.
I think these are fair people. So now, Al-Ghazali, of course, his famous book is in philosophy is Tahafut al-Falasif. I don't know how that was translated. I don't remember now how it was. Something like the fairy of the philosophers also. And they said that philosophy, and the main philosophy that he criticized was Greek philosophy, and especially in the form in which it was taught by Ibn Sina. So it was just like, but he said something that everyone benefited from. He said that when you study philosophy, you have to distinguish between what is that for which there is rational proof. Like, because at that time, philosophy included almost every topic, like astronomy, mathematics, and so on. And he said that those who reject philosophy, a wholesale rejection of philosophy, they do more harm to Islam than some of the enemies of Islam. Because he said that there are rational proofs for these things like astronomy. And I remember when we were studying, he said something that even our teacher, alayhi rahmatullah, could not understand. He said that when you say that something is above another, what that really means, he said that if, say, the moon is here and the earth is there, he said that if you walk from the earth towards the moon, you hit the moon by your head. And if you walk from the moon to the earth, you hit the earth by your head. So both of you are up. But one of you, compared to the other, is called down. One is called up. So they knew, they knew much about the discipline of astronomy, in particular, because it is related to things like eclipse of the moon, eclipse of the sun. So they studied this. And many people wrongly think that Muslims did not know that the earth was spherical. They knew this, and in fact, even the Greeks knew this. So Ibn Taymiyyah quotes, I think, Ibn Hazm, who lived, when did he live? Ibn Hazm said that earlier Muslims, even of the third Hijrah century, knew about the fact that the earth was spherical, globe.
Is there any hope that such kind of science will be revived in the Muslim Ummah nowadays?
Well, it must be. I said in one of the episodes that now I think it is the duty of Muslim scientists not only to excel in their specializations, but to take part in spreading this common knowledge of science. I think that this is something that is very important. I tell some people, some of our sheikhs and so on, that some of this knowledge is important for you, even for your aqidah. You have to know where is the moon, not to be confused about, now we know where is the moon, what is the distance between the earth and the moon, and so on. And this is something that is very important for a person to know. Now, so yes, I really, and when we came to India last time, the thing that I liked in some of the Indian papers is we came here when there was this tsunami, or that was before. And I read some articles, very simple English, explaining this scientifically. And I wish that we had the same in the Arab world.
And Sheikh, philosophy as a discipline, do you see this coming back again in Muslim intellectuals, making a revive of philosophy in particular as a discipline to be studied at this point?
It is already studied in many parts of the Muslim world. But what I like to see is some people, Muslim intellectuals, who are well versed in the Quran and the Sunnah writing on these issues. Not because I don't, as I said earlier, I don't want Muslims to be just students of the West, or yes, whether it is Greek philosophy or modern philosophy. I don't want them just to be students. And I was glad to hear someone saying yesterday, I just saw Al Jazeera just by chance, and I found someone saying something like this, that he is writing, that he came back to his deen and is studying the Quran and the Sunnah and writing and philosophy on this basis. No.
Sheikh, I know that we mentioned Ibn Taymiyyah quite a bit, and I know that you are a great fan of Ibn Taymiyyah, and I believe that you have a book about Ibn Taymiyyah as well. What is it that distinguishes Ibn Taymiyyah, in your opinion?
I cannot say definitely that something distinguishes him from other fuqaha and so on, except the fact that he said something in which they believe, but he advocated this, and he wrote about it very clearly and replied to people. And that is the relation between reason and revelation. One of the recent things that I read about him is something you might find amazing. He said that you can reach the truth of Islam in two ways. Either by sama', I mean reading the Quran and the Sunnah and so on, or by reason. He said that if you give reason its due, it will lead you to the fact that the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you give the Quran and the Sunnah their due, they will lead you to the fact that reason is to be relied on and accepted.
How beautiful, Sheikh. And I believe on this note will be such a good place to come to the end of this part of our episode, unfortunately, as much as we would want to continue on this thought. But thank you for joining us on this journey. And until we meet next time, we say so long and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Spread the word, oh man. Spread the word of Islam. Oh, for